are working on solving addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division equations. Do we remember what the difference is between an equation and an expression? They're really similar. There's only one thing that separates them. An equation, what does it sound like? An equation has a what?
Equal.
Yeah, an equal sign. Okay, so today we're going to be working with
Equal signs.
equations. Oh, friends that are talking out. Thank you. Okay, so in your math journal today, there are a couple of things that I want to kind of draw your attention to. Okay, so the first thing is our vocabulary word, an inverse operation. It is they are operations that undo each other. You're going to get to see what that looks like in just a second. And then another thing that I need you guys to really be aware of is, so we are going to be solving equations involving addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, but it also involves decimals and fractions. And so if you are working on your assignment today and you get confused and you can't remember how to multiply with decimals or how to divide with fractions, these are places I recommend that you look in your math journal. Go to 1.6, 1.7, or 1.9 for decimals, and then with fractions 2.3 and 2.7. Okay, that should help clarify just a little bit. And Devin, can I get you to turn off one light for me, please? And hopefully we'll be able to see it a little bit better. Hey. Thank you. Okay. So I am going to list our operations, and then we're going to write down their inverse operations. By raise of hands, how many of you can tell me what my operations are? Okay, I am going to list one, and then I bet you will be able to list the other three. Are you ready?
Mrs. Fox?
Yes?
Do you have Logan covered?
I do.
Could you have him come to the office for just a moment, please?
Sure can.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to list one and think in your mind, do you know what the other three are? Here's one. Raise your hand if you know what the other ones are. Lots of hands now. Give me another one, Haley.
Multiplication.
Multiplication. Give me another one. Chase.
Division.
Division. And give me the last one, everybody.
Subtraction.
Subtraction. Okay, so these are operations. Okay, so there's addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. And then an inverse operation, it's the operation that is going to undo it. And so what it means is I'm looking for the opposite. The opposite of addition is probably what?
Subtraction.
Subtraction. Good. The opposite of subtraction is what? Addition. We just kind of said it, right? The opposite of multiplication is what?
Division.
Division. And then finally the opposite of division is what?
Multiplication.
Multiplication. Good. Hey, so now that we know what the inverse operations are, I want you guys to be able to come back into your math journal as you're working on this assignment and reference it. I want you to look at them and say, what am I doing? What's my operation? Now what's the inverse operation? So I have an example of each. You guys are welcome to go ahead and write down these equations with me. My first one is going to be D plus 5 equals 23. My second one is going to be Q minus 3 equals 4. My next one is going to be 8P equals 56. And then my last one is X over 5 equals 6. Okay. So we're going to be solving these today. And when we solve them, I want you to understand something about variables, okay? So variables, if this equation was like a party, and you got to decide who you're going to hang out with, like a family party, okay? Raise your hand if you've ever had like your whole family come around, like aunts, uncles, cousins, your siblings are there, okay. So at every family party, usually, there is always that one person. That one person who you really don't want to be left alone with because they're kind of awkward. Raise your hand if you know of an awkward person in your family. Raise your hand if you are that awkward person in your family. Like people sit down with you and they're like, I gotta go, right? Okay, so I an awkward person in my family. His name is Spencer. It's my brother. And I love my brother. He's great. But he's kind of awkward. Like, people feel uncomfortable talking to him because when you talk to him, you're like, hey, how's it going? I haven't seen you in a really long time. Like, when our family gets together, and then he looks out and is like, good. And then people are like, oh, well, how was the drive? Was there a lot of traffic? It was good. Oh, okay, so how are your kids doing? They're so big now. They're good. Right? Like, awkward people. These variables, they're awkward, okay? So if we're hanging out at a party with these variables, you don't want to be stuck with them. They're awkward, okay? Awkward people, they don't even want to be by people. So like when I'm saying this, I'm not offending my brother. He will tell you he doesn't want to be by people, okay? He likes time away from people, and he would rather hang out by himself. Raise your hand if you are a person who would rather hang out by yourself. Raise your hand if you're a person that really wants to hang out with people. That's cool. I would rather hang out with people, but my brother would rather hang out by himself. So the variable is the awkward person that wants to hang out by themselves, and it's totally fine, okay? So when we're working on this assignment today, there are a couple of things you need to do. First, you need to find the awkward person. The awkward person is always going to be the variable. Who's the awkward person?
Variable.
The variable, okay? Right here, the variable. Then we need to say, well, who's hanging out? Who's hanging out with the awkward person? Is it 5 or is it 23? The way that you can tell is who's on the same side of the equal sign. Who's hanging out with our variable? Is it 5 or 23? 5. Yeah, 5 is hanging out, right? And so 5 wants to leave, and awkward D wants 5 to leave. Awkward D is like, go away, right? So 5 needs to leave and go hang out with 23 because 23, like, they're not awkward, okay? So we need to move 5 over to the other side of the equal sign. And this is me just reminding you of the golden rule of what you do to one side of the equal sign, you have to do to the other side, okay? So when we're working on this, we're going to find our awkward person. So here's D, hanging out, awkward as ever, you know. Here's D.
Awkward floating D.
And D wants to be all by himself because he doesn't really like hanging out with people. And so we need to move 5, all right? Because 5 is the one who's hanging out with D. And the way that we move 5 is we have to do the operation inverse. So what's my operation here? What's my operation? Addition. What is my operation inverse? Inverse operation. Subtraction. Yeah, it's the opposite, okay? So if I have 5 things. It's 4 jemmies and a coffee jar, because that's what I have. Okay, I have 5 things. And if I start out with 5 and then I take 5 away, how many things do I have?
0.
0. So all that's left on the left side of my equal sign is who?
0.
No?
23.
Who's on the left side, friends?
D.
D. Yeah, so D, the awkward variable, is all alone. And don't feel sad for D because that's how D wants to stay, okay? So D is hanging out all by himself. These numbers right here, positive 5 and negative 5, they're going to cancel each other out, all right? Because it's left with a 0. And if you say, how many jemmies are here? Would you say there are 2 jemmies, or would you say there are 2 plus 0 jemmies? 2 jemmies, right? We wouldn't say 2 plus 0 jemmies. It's just 2 jemmies, right? So we're just going to cancel them out, and then we're going to set it up so that it's equal. And remember the golden rule. What I do to one side, I have to do to the other side. So if I do minus 5 on the left, what do I need to do on the right? Minus 5 on the right. And think in your mind, what is 23 minus 5? Touch your nose and you know what it is. Whisper into your hand. Throw it out on 3. 1, 2, 3.
18.
18. Good. So D equals 18. And if you ever want to double check yourself, you can always plug in your answer to see if you're right. So I would put in D. I would put 18 in the place of D and rewrite it as 18 plus 5 equals 23. And is that true?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. So it works. I am not saying that you have to check yourself on every answer, but if you're ever unsure, plug it in. See what happens. Connor.
Couldn't you do, like with the first one, change the plus to a minus and then switch the equal sign so it's 23 minus 5 equals D?
Yeah, that's what I thought we were doing.
Why?
I only thought that it was 23 minus
Just move it over here, minus 5. Yes, you could. You could.
Okay.
So what I recommend, and I mean, if you see it a different way, that is completely fine. My recommendation is like breaking it apart this way. I can't stop you if you're gonna choose something else. This is like very, very beginning, very basic, everything that we're building on for algebra, okay? So like, we're gonna start off really easy like this, but we're gonna add more. Like you guys will have like lots of things that we're doing up here, and you're still gonna have to like solve for a variable, like in 7th grade and 8th grade. So I recommend taking it apart piece by piece because that's how I personally do it. If you see it another way and it works, that's okay, all right? Okay, I need this in your math journal. If it's not, I need you to get it there. Osvaldo.
What happens to awkward person D when it turns to 18?
Well, now D and 18, they're separated, so it's okay. Okay, so let's look at our next one. Who is my awkward person here? Q. Q is so awkward. And who's hanging out with Q? Is 3 hanging out with Q or is 4? 3. 3 is hanging out with Q. And so 3 wants to move. And so the way that we move 3 is we do the inverse operation. What is the inverse operation of subtraction? Addition. Okay. Negative 3 plus 3, they're going to cancel each other out. And what I do to one side of the equal sign, I have to do to the other. Okay. And so on the left side, I am left with just Q. And then 4 plus 3 is what?
7.
7. So I just found the value of Q. And if I want to check myself, I'm going to plug in the value of Q. So I'm going to plug in my answer. 7 minus 3 equals 4. And is that true?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Pencils up when you have the first 2 examples. Awesome. We're moving on. Okay, so let's look at our next 2. Okay. Anytime, just a reminder, anytime you see a coefficient next to a variable, we are multiplying. Okay, if you want to put a big giant multiplication sign next to it to remind you, great. We're multiplying. So who is my awkward person? P. And who's hanging out with P? Is 8 hanging out with P or is 56 hanging out with P? 8. And so what is the opposite? What is my inverse operation of multiplication? Division. So I'm going to divide both sides by 8. Because what I do to one side, I have to do to the other side. And so 8 divided by 8 is going to give you 1, so you're going to be left with 1p, right? And so you're left with just p. We don't need to say 1p. And then 56 divided by 8, touch your nose when you know what it is. Whisper it into your hand. Throw it down on 3, 1, 2, 3.
7.
Good, 7. So p equals 7. Okay. And if you want to double check, you're always welcome to. You're going to rewrite it as 8 times 7 equals 56. And is that true?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. So we did one. Oh, and in your math journal, if you want to go ahead and change it or add these, we did an addition, subtraction, multiplication. Who's left? Division. Our friend division. So just a reminder, whenever you see a variable with a line kind of written as a fraction, we're dividing here, okay? So who's my awkward person?
X.
X is awkward. And then who's hanging out with X? 5 or 6?
5.
5. So we want to move 5 away. And what is the opposite of division? Multiplication. And what I do to one side, I do to both sides, right? They'll cancel out because they're on the same side as my variable, so I'm just left with X equals, and what is 6 times 5? 30. And if I want to check, I'm going to rewrite it as 30 divided by 5, and what does that equal? 6. It sure does. Okay. Once your math journal matches my math journal, I'm going to open on the corner of your desk.